Broadcasting live, this is the Handicappers Report, brought to you by the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany, and CapitalOTBBet.com, the premier online wagering site in New York State. CapitalOTBBet.com. Sign up today.
Good morning. This is the Handicappers Report. This morning it's the Handicapper Report. Mr. Romino out of town. I'm Seth Merrow, so I'll take you through the morning. We'll take a look at a little Aqueduct and some Keeneland for this Saturday. Coming up at the top of the next hour, racing across America. It's opening day at Woodbine. And Woodbine, one of our sponsors some of the programming and events here at Capital OTB. So we're always happy to have Woodbine in the mix, and looking forward to it. I know a lot of our players like it. They have the incremental bets that you can get in and put together a nice size ticket for a small amount of money, and that's fun up north of the border. They have great turf racing, obviously, with a couple of turf courses, great stakes racing as well. And it looks like we will be back up there a little bit later on this year. Our first trip up to Woodbine, and I was trying to think yesterday, I guess 3 years. With the pandemic, obviously, for a while the border was closed, and then it was a little bit difficult. But it looks like this year we'll head back up. Normally, our trips were the Queen's Plate and the Woodbine Mile, and the Queen's Plate was June, the Woodbine Mile in September. But now, first, it's not the Queen's Plate, it's the King's Plate now with the change over in the UK. And it's also been moved to August during the pandemic period. So that obviously overlaps with our coverage of Saratoga. So can't make it up for the King's Plate, but planning to head up in September for the Woodbine Mile. What a week or two right after Saratoga. Always fun to go up to Woodbine. You hop on the thruway, you go up, you take a right at Buffalo, and you're there shortly. But fun racing, nice facility. People are nice at Woodbine, so I would recommend the trip. And I've said it a number of times before, if you time things right, you can maybe catch a little Fort Erie on your trip. You can maybe catch a little Finger Lakes on your trip as well. So keep that in mind as the year progresses with Woodbine kicking off today. But with Woodbine kicking off, our friend Ellis Starr, national racing analyst for Equibase, and he also handicaps for a number of racetracks on their website. One of those is Woodbine. But he put together a nice little article for the Woodbine website talking about handicapping up there to start the meet. And they're kind of unique. Finger Lakes and kind of still is the same. And Finger Lakes kicks off Monday. But a lot of the outfits at those tracks take the winter off, essentially. The horses kind of get put away and people go to the sidelines. We've started to see some of the Woodbine folks wind up down at Gulfstream on their synthetic, but for the most part, horses get put away. And so your handicapping has to be maybe a little bit different with horses coming back from the layoff to start the season up at Woodbine. And Ellis talks about some of the factors to consider when you're handicapping. So we'll talk some of that with Ellis and get maybe a couple of thoughts up at Woodbine, but Ellis also does some handicapping for the Keeneland website. So we'll take a look at the two Keeneland stakes today with Ellis. And then a little bit later on, we will be joined by Nancy Holthus from Oaklawn. Oaklawn, another big day. Apple Blossom last week and the Oaklawn Handicap this week and a couple other stakes as well. Nice little 3-year-old stake as well down at Oaklawn that is a win and you're in for the Preakness. Has some 3-year-olds that had shown some promise and then just didn't quite live up to that enough to continue on the Derby trail necessarily, but they're going to be nice 3-year-olds as the year progresses. And so that'll be on the card as well. As I say, we'll talk about that with Nancy Holthus as well. So that's all coming up, racing across America at 10 o'clock. So fun morning coming up. Do want to remind you that Queensberry branch today, it is a fan appreciation day. Those are always a lot of fun. There's vouchers, there's food, there's contests, or a contest, and always gives us our chance to say thank you to you for your patronage. So if you're up in the Queensberry area, stop by the branch this afternoon for a fan appreciation day. Also want to remind you that about a week and a half down the road now, it is the annual Kentucky Derby seminar that'll come up on Wednesday, May 3rd at 7 p.m. We'll be here in the studio. You can watch on the network, but also via YouTube, the Capital OTV YouTube channel, some of the other social platforms. I'll be in with Anthony Mormino and Kevin Cox, the Brooklyn Cowboy. We'll take a comprehensive look at this year's Kentucky Derby, all coming up Wednesday, May 3rd at 7 p.m. Excuse me. Mark your calendar. All right. I think that catches us. Oh, if you're a Laurel fan, and they had a big stakes day scheduled today. They are having trouble with their track, and that has been a situation at Laurel, kind of an ongoing. I mean, they just had it resurfaced a couple years ago, and so that again have trouble. But upshot being, they canceled racing yesterday. Their notice said racing canceled indefinitely. We'll see what transpires and how it plays out. And again, we had Bobby Holt on last week, and he had written the article in the Blood Horse talking about the future of racing in Maryland, and the potential to maybe wind up with Pimlico being the track. You would think something like this would play into that. And as Bob said, nothing is set in stone. This is just kind of reading the tea leaves and talking to the players down there, and you can go back and read his article in the Blood Horse. But as I say, this certainly would lead you down that path to think that it's maybe more than potential if, not only they lose racing days because they're kind of feeling the surface isn't what it should be, but a big day like this, they have maybe 4 stakes scheduled for today down at Laurel. So again, we'll keep our eyes on that situation. But there will be racing in New York, racing down in Kentucky, racing in Arkansas at Oaklawn. You pick up the one sheet. I've handicapped those 3 tracks on the one sheet. Go to capitalotv.com, click on the handicapping link, and then the Handicappers Report. Nice printable sheet with selections. You get Brian Eto's Keeneland Matrix as well. But this morning, I will take a look at some Aqueduct and some Keeneland. So let's jump in. Aqueduct today. The opener, State Bred Maiden Claimers going 6 on the grass for me at Aqueduct in the first, 7, 2, 4, and 6. I'll use Pimanova on top. In a race like this, I don't think I was going to say I don't think it's just I think a lot of people maybe shy a little bit away from the more experienced losers, horses who have had plenty of opportunities and haven't gotten it done. You like to go with a fresh or fresher face, but Pimanova is moving maiden special weight to maiden claiming, has some races underneath that are clearly good enough to kind of get things done here. Comes up off a couple starts January and March at Gulfstream. They weren't much, but in the beginning of the turf season, this is a horse coming to New York with already a couple of starts under the belt this year, plus the class relief. And again, it's a little double dose of class relief as compared to those last 2 at Gulfstream. Those were against open maiden specials. Now goes against state-bred maiden claimers. So I'm hoping the class relief wakes this one up. But if you get too short of a price and you want to start out your pick 5 at Aqueduct with an alternative, Spoils of War, I think is intriguing. Ray Handel having a good Aqueduct spring meet so far. Katie Davis jumps on board. Boy, she's riding really well too. But the couple of starts this horse had probably on the numbers are a little slower than the top pick, but they were at Saratoga last September and the Meadowlands also September. So this is a horse that had a couple of starts as a 2-year-old, now a little time off, now comes back. Trainer's going well, jockey's going well. And I wouldn't be shocked to see a little improvement off the layoff for the now 3-year-old horse. So on that fresher face angle, Spoils of War is interesting. Spooky Lady, like the top pick, has started a number of times and hasn't gotten it done. Tends to have a little positional early speed. Didn't show it last time. Tries the turf for the first time today. We'll see if that works out for this one. There's nothing jumping off the page at me. I was just looking for a little something here or there that I could land on in a relatively modest field. So there was enough there to think this one could be interesting. And maybe first time on the turf wakes up a little bit. Nuance as a first-time starter is, the fresh face. I don't think there's any other. For the number 11, also a first term. By constitution, I can make an argument out there as well. But for me, in the opener at Aqueduct, and again, it'll kick off your early pick 5, 7, 2, 4, and 6. Race number 2 this afternoon, we are looking at maiden special runners going 9 furlongs. I have it 4-3, the 1 entry, and 7. Number 4, Shreveport, goes out for Bill Mott. First couple of starts last year in May and June were pretty good. The follow-up off the layoff to kick off this 4-year-old season, I thought was okay. It was beaten as the 3-2 favorite, so it was okay on the page and maybe an okay way to start the season. It wasn't okay with the bettors, obviously. But I'm hoping that puts a little fitness into the horse and we get back closer to what we saw or maybe move forward from the first 2 starts. First 2 starts were decent number-wise. The comebacker regressed a little bit, so we'll see. But it's a lightly raced 4-year-old. And as I say, if this horse does benefit from the seasonal debut, could be live in here. And maybe a little bit of a price because we're looking at 5-1 on the morning line. Ballantine, it's Peter Brandt and Chad Brown. Like the top pick, already has a little bit of experience. Like the top pick, started last year as a 3-year-old and then laid off and came back as a 4-year-old. And as opposed to the top pick, ran okay, but traveled down to Parks to do it. You don't see a lot of Chad Brown, Peter Brandt runners down at Parks. And so you have to think this is potentially the second string. And like the top pick that lost last time at 3-2, Ballantine lost at Parks at 30 cents to the dollar. So they have similar scenarios in that there's some potential, you would think here. Solid connections. First start of the season, hopefully added some fitness. Third spot, the 7-5 morning line favorite, the Brad Cox runner, First Money. 1 start so far. That was back at the end of March. Showed a little speed before fading a little bit, but ran a decent third. For a debut, that's okay. Adds Lasix today. Blinkers come off, so a little bit of a switch up in equipment that maybe benefits the horse now with the experience under the belt. So, that I have the PPs printed with the closer look comments underneath. In this race, they were done by David Aragona. And he winds up his comments saying, arguably the horse to beat. I think that's fair. In the second at Aqueduct, 4-3, the 1 entry, and 7. And between the 1 entry, First Money is the second-time starter, and the 1A Kaon has had a few starts under the belt. 1 is Brad Cox. 1A is Chad Brown. Between those, I like the plain 1 a little bit better, but you get 2 for the price of 1. 4-3, the 1 entry, and 7 in the second. Stakes action in the third race today at Aqueduct. It is the Woodhaven. It's for 3-year-olds going a mile on the grass, $100,000 up for grabs. I'm going to go 4, 5, 6, and 2. I'm going to put Belloni. We will see what Chris Griffin does with that. But it's a Chad Brown European import who came over, tried the Colonel Liam down at Gulfstream last time. Ran 7th, but 7th by 3 lengths. Going to be interested to see what the odds are here. Because, again, the U.S. debut was, shrug of the shoulders kind of a thing. But, 9-5 on the morning line, Michael Dubb and Company, Chad Brown, horse that started in Europe. There are things that are going to attract the betting public. The 9-5 is probably about right. I just have a feeling with Chad Brown, are they going to really hammer this one? You don't want too short of a price off of that U.S. debut effort. Alternatives, Christophe Clement has Inflation Nation. Louis Lazzanero, Michael Dubb and Company, 4 starts last year as a 2-year-old. And they were all promising. They all kind of pointed to this horse being a decent little stakes level performer. Now comes back as a 3-year-old. And again, sometimes you get that limited number of starts as a 2-year-old and you come back A few months later, it's a 3-year-old. You come back even better. If that's the case, Inflation Nation, I think, becomes a very viable alternative. And then Neural Network going out for Chad and Klarovich. New York bred runner has run well in a couple of New York bred stakes races. New York bred races, broke the maiden in a state bred maiden special. Last time out was in the state bred gander and ran second, but then was placed first through the DQ. Now, in between those two races, tried Open Company in the Jerome, ran fourth. The notable thing is all of those were on the dirt. So how do you translate all of this info? Gee, seems maybe a little bit more competitive against the state breds than Open Company, but this is Open Company over on the grass. They try the grass here. I think the horse is going to be okay on the grass. So again, I think this is an alternative to the other, the top pick at Chad. I have the 4 on top. Again, at too short of a price. I'm a little bit leery. I looked at both of those alternatives and potentially putting on top. This is one where you look at the odds and make some decisions there. And if you're playing that early pick 5 or early pick 4, I would not argue, using a few in here and trying to beat maybe the short price Chad favorite. But we shall see how it works out in the third. For me, 4, 5, 6, and 2. Fourth race at Aqueduct this afternoon. State bred allowance runners, non-winners and one other than the condition. 3/4 of a mile is the trip on the grass. 11, 5, 8, and 12. I'll put Lisa's Vision on top. Hasn't been seen since last October. Steady string of workouts. They aren't really tipping the hand one way or the other. But this horse 4 times in the exacta in 6 starts. A couple of nice second place finishes to wind up the season last year. If ready to run, I think is very interesting and very possibly a solid contender in here. 'Tis a pity. Similar scenario. Christophe Clement runner is talented enough to mix it up in here, but hasn't been seen since November. So what's the fitness level going to be? I'm just kidding. Similar scenario here. Hasn't been seen since October. 2 dirt starts, 2 turf starts. I'd argue the turf starts are better. Comes back on the turf for John Kimmel, Chester and Mary Broman. And like the top 2, has to kind of tell us whether she's ready to roll in this first start. You don't know until they go. So a little bit of a question mark, but comes back with Lasix added. And this one, as opposed to my top 2, workouts are a little more intriguing. That Palm Meadows workout earlier this month kind of says that she should come back ready to roll. In the 4th at Aqueduct, 11, 5, 8, and 12. 5th race today, state bred allowance runners, non-winners are one other than going 3/4 of a mile on the main track. In the 5th at Aqueduct, 3, 6, 2, and 8. Bragiol on top. Nice win, 2 back in a $25,000 claimer. Claimed out of that race and then moved into a starter allowance. So it was a little bit of a question mark class-wise making the move. And at 9-1, got it done off the claim and moving into the starter allowance from the conditional claimer. And then last time tried this state bred allowance level, which again is also a question mark class-wise. How is the horse going to stack up? Okay, ran a decent little 3rd in there. So I think the horse is in good form off the claim. Got a little experience at this level last time. 9-2. We'll put Bragiol on top. Agility in the 2nd spot. On the numbers, certainly the last couple of numbers, this one has maybe a little bit of an edge on the top pick. I just thought the top pick is Bragiol moving in the right direction and maybe gets up to those numbers. And agility, like I say, the last 2 has numbers that are going to have an edge. But you go down the page, this horse isn't absolutely consistently firing those kind of numbers. So I'll take the 3 over the 2, and then in the 3rd spot, 2 for charging. 3 starts last April, May, and July, off since then. So again, another one of the question marks of is the fitness level going to be there? There are a couple of workouts, including the most recent, that says the horse probably is going to come back ready to roll. And what we saw last year in the maiden breaker maybe bodes well for an interesting try in the seasonal debut this afternoon. Fifth at Aqueduct, 3, 6, 2, and 8. I will take a break. When we come back, we'll complete our look at Aqueduct. A little bit later on, we'll shift our attention to Keeneland as we look at some of the action on what's going to be a fun Saturday afternoon. So stay tuned. Right back after this. It's that time of year.
Forte wins.
Angel of Empire wins the Arkansas Derby and wins it clear.
Practical Move has won the Run Happy Santa Anita Derby.
Join us on Wednesday, May 3rd at 7 p.m. for the annual Capital OTB Kentucky Derby Seminar. Streaming live on the Capital OTB YouTube channel and other social platforms. Join Seth Merrow, Anthony Mormino, and the Brooklyn Cowboy Kevin Cox for a comprehensive look at this year's Kentucky Derby.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Whoops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now. Welcome back to the Handicappers Report on this Saturday morning. Seth Merrow in the studio. Happy you have joined us. 6 race this afternoon at Aqueduct. State bred maiden 40 claimers going 8.5 furlongs on the grass. I have it 9, 10, 5, and 14. Going to put Miles on top. Christophe Clement runner. Didn't show much in debut, but had a little trouble there. I'm going to look at this one, maybe just having gotten a little start and getting prepped to move over to the grass. That's going to be the hope here. I think given the first start of the career, we're looking at 4-1 on the morning line. I'm hoping maybe we tick up from that with these connections, and the betting public may kind of decipher the same things I'm thinking of. Maybe we won't, but I think you have to get a little bit of value off a 23-length loss. But I do think that was probably, hey, let's prep, let's get ready, let's go over to the grass when the season starts. And so I'll put Miles on top. But again, got to demand a little bit of value there. October Bliss, a little more experienced than the top pick, but like the top pick, tries the grass today. Second off the claim and dropping back in for the tag. I think the class move is a little more key because the 2 starts for the tag for this horse, albeit on the dirt, but they were okay. Third spot, we'll go with Over the Cap. First time starter by Overanalyzed from Linda Rice. Linda Rice continues to go very well down in New York. I think there's a little bit of breeding here that could tout this one first time out of the box. You know, a lot of those kind of factors, I'd say if you watch enough, don't really count and don't live up to those factors against better. In the state-bred maiden claiming ranks, a lot of the things that I like to focus on in the maiden races just aren't quite as potent. But again, there's a little bit of breeding here, connections, and it's another one of those where maybe the fresh face is the way to go. So in the 6th at Aqueduct, 9, 10, 5, and 14. 7th race this afternoon, they're on the grass for a group of conditional claimers. In the 7th, 3, 9, 8, and 1. I'm going to put Splendid Summer on top for Todd Pletcher. Kendra Carmouche on board. Hasn't been seen since Saratoga last August, but it was a pretty good try in a similar race. Been working down at Pletcher's Palm Beach Downs facility and been doing so as recently as just about a week ago. So comes up after a string of steady works. I would expect the horse to be kind of primed and ready to roll off of the layoff, given the works down in Florida. So splendid summer on top. More than work. Last seen at Turfway, spent the winter there on the synthetic for Brad Cox and did it against better. Broke the maiden 2-back against maiden specials, just missed against maiden specials 3-back, and last time tried allowance company. So comes up to New York, moves to the grass, and drops in for a tag. I think this horse will be very competitive, as evidenced by the 7-5 morning line. As I say, spent the winter at Turfway, but has some good turf races underneath prior to that. So more than work, given the morning line and given the record and the connections, probably is the one to beat. And then in the third spot, Born a Gambler, hasn't been seen since last July up at Saratoga, and there was a voided claim. And this, you're always, oh boy. And I would think off a layoff like this, I would think they could race for the waiver. Not exactly sure of the rules there, but I would think they could jump in for the waiver. That they're in for the tag is a little bit concerning, I suppose. But comes in with some decent workouts, and that I circled a couple of those. And so if the horse is ready to run, I think fits nicely with this group this afternoon. In the 7th at Aqueduct, 3-9, 8-1. 8th race at Aqueduct today. It is the New York Stallion, couple of $100,000 up for grabs, and they will go 6.5 furlongs. I went 1, 4, 8, and 3. I put East Coast Girl on top. I was kind of surprised by the 9-2 because I thought the Maiden Breaker 2-back was pretty good. And the follow-up against optional claimer starter allowance types was okay. I think this horse is going to be a decent fit. I mean, broke the maiden 2-back for a maiden claiming tag, and now in stakes company, I suppose you can kind of justify the 9-2. But I think looking at this particular stakes field, I think East Coast Girl is a square fit. Second spot will go with General Banker. 12 starts so far and 1 win. The win was in a New York Stallion race to break the maiden, actually, back in December. Since then has gone in the Jerome, the Withers, the Gotham, and the Wood Memorial, and was a little bit competitive in 3 of those, not the Wood, and now comes back relatively quickly, a couple of weeks after the Wood, to try, for the $200,000 this afternoon, stepping back into stakes company. Interested to see what the horse can do getting back in against State Bred Company, and with the, as I say, relatively quick turnaround. Coach Patino, interesting, going out for our friend Roddy Valente at a first-time starter. It's not unusual that you see this type of thing, actually, in these New York Stallion races, because a big pot is put up for grabs, and typically you get fields like this, which, as I said, this is not a field of world beaters. So if you think, man, we got a first-time starter that maybe has a little life, let's take a shot for the $200,000. So I think Coach Patino, a little bit interesting. I did not know what to do with Lifetime of a Chance, who is the morning line favorite at 9-5. Mark Cassie runner, now Mark Cassie, was in the barn of Linda Rice, but broke the maiden last time by 16 lengths with a 91 buyer, which was, 20 points better than anything else on the page. Those are the kind that it's hard to know what to do with, because the majority of races aren't that good. And I often say, don't make a decision for a horse based on one race, good or bad. So on the 91 buyer big win last time, I wouldn't argue anybody off of the horse, but for me, I want to, hey, let me see another one and prove that I can buy into that. For me, in the 8th race at Aqueduct today, the New York Stallion, I have it 1, 4, 8, and 3. And we'll wrap things up just a little after 5:30 this evening at Aqueduct with the 9th. Allowance non-winners are 1 runners going 7 in the 9th at Aqueduct. I have it 1, 4, 3, and 9. I'm going to put Sterling Silver on top. Comes up from a seasonal debut down at Tampa in a starter handicap. Ran 4th in there. Wasn't spectacular, but You go down the page, and this horse has a steady string of stakes races and some, pretty solid company lines. Prior to the seasonal debut, was last seen in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint behind Goodnight Olive. Was in a stake behind Kamari prior to that. Nest shows up in the company lines a little further down the page. Seems like, did not inspire with the first start down at Tampa, but I'll give this one another little look at this non-winners of one condition. Second spot, Asset Purchase, 7-5 on the morning line. Chad Brown, Klarovich runner, coming out of a couple of nice races, the Maiden Breaker, and then from the Maiden Breaker straight into the Busher, where the horse ran second to the Barnmate. So this one is clearly showing some potential, and also back into the proper non-winners of one, likely the one to beat. And then Mashney Girl in the third spot. Mark Hennig trainee, has a little bit of early speed, could be the catch me if you can horse. There's one or two others in here that maybe have some speed, but I think Mashney Girl may be the one that is out there saying catch me if you can. And the ninth and final at Aqueduct, 1, 4, 3, and 9. All right, we'll send it to another break. When we come back, we will shift our attention to Keeneland. Stay tuned.
Birdstone is it up front, but they're coming down to the finish. Can Smarty Jones hold on? Here comes Birdstone. Birdstone surges past. Birdstone wins the Belmont Stakes.
In front, but here comes High Chaparral. High Chaparral, the defending champ, to take it to Bob. These two arch rivals head to head with Joe Hart bearing down on them. It's going to be a 3-horse photo finish to the turn. Here's the wire. Photo finish.
What if there was a way to become a better horse player, to have a better knowledge of the game, to be more successful? What if there were a way to take what you've learned, what you know, and make better decisions, better choices? In horse racing, knowledge is a powerful tool. Race results and replays, past performances and live streaming, wagering from all your digital devices. Capital OTB. Become a better horse player.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now.
Welcome back. Let's jump into Keeneland on this Saturday, taking a look at their opener, $16,000 claimers, going 6.5. I have it 8, 5, 1, and 4. I'm going to put Rasada on top, 20-1 on the morning line. And frankly, I'll be interested to see if that holds up, because this horse comes out of an okay win over at Turfway. And if you've been watching the last couple of weeks, I've really liked the Turfway shippers. And it's been worthwhile. At some races, there are a few of them in, and I go with the wrong Turfway shipper. But if you get the right idea, you can get a little bit of value. And this horse may have some value. I just, we were running against about half the price on the claiming ladder. So that may play into the eventual price. But again, the morning line just looks a little generous to me at 20-1 coming off that win last time. But I'll take a shot. A horse coming off a win, and a nice looking win at Turfway, and with a number that matches up okay with this bunch. I don't think there's any horses that are consistently throwing numbers that stand out here. She's Gone to Wild in the second spot. Was racing against some Louisiana breds down at Fairgrounds this winter. Was doing so, intermittently, competitively. A better race from this one makes She's Gone to Wild intriguing in here in this open claimer in Kentucky. The added bonus, the last couple of races down at the Fairgrounds were at a mile, goes to 6.5 today. I like the cutback angle. And then High Speed in the third spot. The morning line favored 2-1. Yes. So this one's 2-1 and was on the turf last time and ran 7th. Prior to that, down at the fairgrounds was on the dirt and ran 5th with a race that, I don't think there's any races on the page. I don't think are any better than the better performances from the top pick. That High Speed's 2-1 and Rosada's 20-1. So we'll see. May start out the day with a little bit of an interesting twist here with the top pick. And again, I'm going to be intrigued to see also what the odds wind up as they go into the gate. But for me, in the opener at Keeneland today, 8-5, 1-4. Second race at Keeneland, starter allowance types going 8.5 furlongs. At Keeneland in the second, I have a 3, 1, 4, and 5. The club on top. Dale Roman's trainee coming up from trying the synthetic and the turf at Gulfstream earlier this season. Now gets to the dirt. There's a dirt race 3 back at Churchill that was okay. Dirt race to start the career at Saratoga that was okay. I'm not convinced, though, on those dirt races. So I put this horse on top with trepidation. I just thought the recent numbers, and I went back and forth, but I thought the recent numbers, albeit on synthetic and turf, but that dirt race 3 back was good enough. Again, with trepidation, I'll use the club on top. Ghostly Girl in the second spot. Nice try last time against these kind at Oak Lawn, and that may bode well for the Kenny McPeak runner, who I think is probably talent-wise, and certainly talent-wise on the dirt, probably pretty comparable to the top pick, actually. And then Deck of Cards, one of those coming in from Turfway Park, moves into the barn, and Jonathan Wong off the claim. Jonathan Wong, limited starters here at Keeneland, but has done okay so far. This one, nice little workout leading into this, so I think Deck of Cards is intriguing as well. Second race at Keeneland this afternoon, 3, 1, 4, and 5. Third race today at Keeneland, maiden 30 claimers going 7, 8, 1, 7, and 14. Number 8, Irad Ortiz on board for Greg Foley off the claim. 10 tries hasn't gotten it done, but has been knocking on the door a number of times. And just looking at this horse and this field, maybe breaks through today. And it was also attractive that Irad Ortiz hopped on board. That's a little of the factoring in here. So 8 on top, number 1 off the cuff in the second spot. The Mike Maker trainee gets Tyler Gaffleone, who's riding very well down at Keeneland right now, coming in from Turfway. Been facing similar, maybe a little bit better over at Turfway the last few races. Has some early speed. You would expect that to be flashed from the rail today. Improving buyers over the past few starts. So seems like a solid player in and amongst this bunch. And then Battleborn, yet another shipping in most recently from Turfway. Dropped in for a tag last time and ran a decent little third. Drops a little further down the ladder today. Should be a player over here, given the scenario of lightly raced, moving in the right direction. Third at Keeneland, 8, 1, 7, and 14. Fourth race at Keeneland, $62,500 plain vanilla claimers going 7, 2, 1, 3, and 4. Silk Trade on top. Norm Cassie trainee with Irad jumping on board. Last seen down at Oak Lawn, winning a 40 claimer. Did it with a lifetime best buyer number. But you go down the page, has run comparable numbers a number of times. So I don't think it would be crazy to see those kind of numbers pair up a little bit. I think he will have to get to that number last time from the Oak Lawn win to get it done here, because on best efforts, there are others in here who are in the similar category buyer-wise. Gunnett being one of those. Recent numbers are a little bit lighter, but you go down the page, they're okay. This is a Steve Asmussen trainee, and if you haven't been paying attention, Asmussen really is at a good meet, although I think he's second behind Robertina Diodoro overall at Oak Lawn. But going back to last weekend, on a little bit of a roll. I think last Friday, Saturday, Sunday, he had 7 or 8 perhaps over the 3-day period. And then yesterday, at least one. He might have had a couple, but the one yesterday, it's notable because that put him in the lead as the all-time winningest trainer down at Oaklawn with one of his wins yesterday, and his son was on board, so that was fun too. But Asmussen having a good meet, so Gunnett in the mix, and then Legal Deal in the third spot. Last couple of starts down at Gulfstream weren't particularly inspiring, but I think given what we see on the page overall and looking at this particular field, I think is going to fit all right in and amongst this group. In the fourth at Keeneland, 2-1, 3 and 4. And race number 5, an allowance non-winners of 2 other than, they're going for $120,000. Mile and 1/8 on the grass, 7, 8, 5 and 3. My Risky Affair goes out for Christoph. I should say there was some rain yesterday. I'm looking at the video signal from the paddock at Keeneland right now. I'm looking at Nancy Holthus is actually interviewing. She does a morning interview show at Oaklawn on Saturday morning. She's interviewing Maggie Wolfendale, and it looks like a gorgeous morning at Keeneland, but it looked at Oaklawn. So it's sunny at Oaklawn. Over at Keeneland, it looks a little overcast, and there was some rain yesterday. So keep your eyes and ears open. It doesn't look like it's raining now. There are people walking around. But keep your eyes and ears open. Should any of the Keeneland turf races switch, I have dirt picks also over on the one sheet. But on the turf, which I expect, again, looking, I would think this will be on the turf. Keeneland's 5th, 7, 8, 5 and 3. We'll put My Risky Affair on top. Christophe Clement runner. Last seen in a stakes race at Aqueduct in November. It was in the hunt before fading a little bit late, but overall, this horse is pretty consistent. And the consistent races this horse fires, I think, match up really well with this bunch. So question mark will be fitness off the layout, but a steady string of works down a pace and leading into this would say the horse probably comes back ready to roll. My Risky Affair on top, Beechnut Trophy in the second spot. Seasonal debut at the end of March was a nice little third. The Safi Joseph runner has a string of numbers that are on the improve. That seasonal debut was the best number yet, so maybe an improved 4-year-old. I would expect this horse to be heard from down the lane. And then in the third spot, She's Gone. Vicky Oliver runner, last seen down at Tampa. I've said it before, I like the Vicky Oliver runners down in Kentucky as maybe offering a little bit of value. And this one at 10-1 on the morning line, I think could do just that. 5th at Keeneland, 7, 8, 5 and 3. All right, we'll take our final break. When we come back, a little more from Keeneland. We'll wrap things up at Keeneland and lead into the 10 o'clock show, Racing Across America. Ellis Starr will talk a little Woodbine on their opening day. He'll give some thoughts on Keeneland. And as I say, I see Nancy Holthus doing her Saturday morning interview with Maggie Wolfendale on their signal. She'll have that wrapped up, and she'll join us as well a little bit later on to talk the Oaklawn Stakes action, which is really nice this afternoon. But first, we'll take a look at the last few races at Keeneland. All of that right after this. Stay tuned.
The Clubhouse Racebook is the Capital Region's new home for racing and sports. 25,000 square feet of Vegas-style action with live wagering on the best horse racing from around the world. 260 flat-screen televisions and state-of-the-art wagering terminals. So don't miss out. The fun is only minutes away at 711 Central Avenue, Albany, just off exit 5 of I-90. And don't forget, if you can't make it to the Clubhouse, you can always wager online 24/7 at capitalotv.com.
No matter where in the world you are, the excitement of wagering on horse racing is just a click away. You'll get live streaming, past performances, race replays, our virtual tote board, analysis and selections from professional handicappers, a simple, safe, and secure wagering platform, and best of all, you get track prices. CapitalOTBBet.com. Bet any place, anytime at CapitalOTBBet.com. And be sure to download our new mobile app from the iTunes Store or Google Play.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Whoops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Welcome back. Let's jump back into Keeneland maiden specials in the 6th race. 3-year-olds going 6.5. So it's called cartographer in here. I'm going to have to look that up now. I think there was another one. Not too a certain number of years have to go by it, and maybe I'm showing my age. I would have said it wasn't that long ago. There was another cartographer, but cleverly named by Liam's Map, so cartographer. I did not use that one in the mix, however. I have it 6, 8, 11, and 7. I'll put Billy Jack on top, Asmussen trainee. Ran third in debut, but was moved up on the DQ, so had a little trouble there. And Asmussen horses often benefit from a start and go better in their second career start. So I'll take a little shot with Billy Jack. Salivo. There was the Salivo Spritz the other day. Now the plain Salivo going out for West Point Thoroughbreds and Company. And I would expect there'll be some cheering up in Saratoga for Salivo this afternoon. It's a Cherie DeVoe first-time starter. They paid a decent amount of money for this horse at the Ocala sale, but I will note it was Ocala last year. And I say often, I'm always a little leery when horses are bought at these 2-year-old sales and don't show up as a 2-year-old. But that said, this horse is working and working well. And again, sometimes it's just a situation and there's a little ding or whatever, and they come back and they live up to the potential they showed as the 2-year-old at the sale. And given the way this horse is working, I think that could be the case here. And then Cigarette Boat going out for Cantheros, or with Cantheros as a sire. Win Early Sire hasn't quite lived up to that yet, but now makes the second start of the season after debuting over at Turfway. Has nice dirt races underneath. I wouldn't be shocked to see this horse run decently this afternoon at potentially a little bit of a price. In the 6th at Keeneland, 6, 8, 11, and 7. Race number 7 today at Keeneland. Allowance non-winners of 2 lifetime runners going 6. 7, 2, 4, and 6 with Socially Selective on top. This is a horse that will clearly take a lot of action this afternoon. Bill Mott trainee that won in debut up at Saratoga last summer and did so convincingly. Then went to the sidelines, but they felt the horse was going to come back okay in that they started the season in a stakes race at Oaklawn back at the end of March and ran an okay second. Now they get back in the proper non-winners of 2 with the 2 races and the 2 numbers as compared to this bunch. This horse is going to be a short price and deservedly so. Second spot, Unsung Melody. Comes in off a maiden breaker down in Oaklawn that was okay. The race just before that was pretty good as well. I don't think, given the race 2 back, the number, I don't think this horse has to improve markedly to be right in the ballpark with Socially Selective. So, if you're looking for an alternative, I could make the case there. Devious Stairs in the 3rd spot. It is a Wesley Ward trainee who won in the first start of the career, being by Practical Joke. That was, no surprise. And being a Wesley Ward trainer, even less of a surprise, but also notable. Wesley Ward just having a really good meet down in Keeneland. So given the number thrown in the debut, probably has to play a little catch up. But I don't think in the second start of the career that is out of the question if you wanted to look in that direction. In the 7th at Keeneland, 7, 2, 4, and 6. Race number 8 at Keeneland this afternoon. We have some stakes action. The Elkhorn. Grade 2 event, $350,000, a mile and a half. For me, 2, 3, 1, and 5. Value Engineering coming out of a win in the McDiarmid down at Gulfstream. Had 3 stake starts down at Gulfstream this winter. 2 wins, bookending a near-miss second. The near-miss second was to Red Knight. I put that one down in the 4th spot. And his last race was that win over Value Engineering in the McKnight. But the Mike Maker trainee, I think, is very playable in here as well. So I have Value Engineering on top, Red Knight down at the bottom in my mix, and in between I used Rising Empire, coming out of a couple of nice races, including a second in a stake down at Fairgrounds last time, and Channel Maker, the venerable Channel Maker, 9 years old, almost approaching $4 million in the bank. The Bill Mott trainee, last seen in that McKnight behind Red Knight and Value Engineering. But on a best effort, I think this horse is playable in here and could be a little bit interesting. And don't forget, this is the defending champion of this race, having won it last year at 7-2. So for me, in the Keeneland 8th, the Elkhorn 2, 3, 1, and 5. Ninth race this afternoon, the Ben Ali Grade 3 event, $300,000, 1 mile and 3/16. Interesting little field in here of handicap runners, maybe second stringers, but always with the potential to get called in off the bench and move to the first string with good performances. I have this one 1, 4, 5, and 7. Pioneer of Medina for Todd Pletcher. I'm kind of drawing a line through the last race and looking at the prior races. The last race, the New Orleans Classic, was certainly disappointing. But before that, had won the Mine Shaft, a second in the Harlan's Holiday, and had won an optional claimer down at Churchill. I'm going to hope we get back to those kind of efforts, obviously, as opposed to the latest. And that latest does have the look of something of an aberration. Second spot, Skippy Longstocking. Skippy Longstocking, if you go 3 races back in the Harlan Holiday, actually finished in front of Pioneer of Medina, comes in good form, having won a little stake down at Tampa last time. And that Harlan's Holiday, a 106 buyer, certainly stands out. 7-5 on the morning line. I'm going to be interested to see where these two wind up, because Skippy Longstocking is 7-5, Pioneer Medina is 7-2. I have a feeling they'll be closer by the time we get into the gate. Rattle and Roll in the third spot. The Ken McPeak runner tossed a triple-digit buyer, but ran fourth in the latest effort, the New Orleans Classic. Finished obviously in front of Pioneer Medina. On a best effort, this horse is very playable. That last start was the 4-year-old debut. I'd be interested to see how this horse progresses now as a 4-year-old, because I thought it was a kind of a fun and interesting 3-year-old last year. In the ninth at Keeneland, the Ben Ali 1, 4, 5, and 7. And we will wrap things up at Keeneland in the 10th, just about 5:45 this evening. 10th at Keeneland, I have a 10, 11, 2, and 5. I am going to put number 10 on top, Just Might. This is a fun horse that turf or dirt is very playable. Sprinting has been throughout the career. Now, over the last couple of seasons, 1 win in 8 starts, and only has the 1 start this season. But I'm going to think the 7-year-old is maybe a little bit intriguing here, getting back to the turf, and with the 1 start so far this season under the belt, we'll put Just Might on top. Nobody Listens in the second spot. Has a lot of early speed and comes in off a stakes win over at Turfway last time. That should have the horse in a good spot. And then Smokin' Jay off a win down at Gulfstream sprinting last time in a pretty good race. I mean, a nice time, a nice figure, and comes in with a little bullet workout as well. So fun little sprint to end the day, turf sprint to end the day at Keeneland. I have a 10, 11, 2, and 5. All right, that will wrap up our look at Aqueduct and Keeneland for this Saturday afternoon. Again, if you go to capitalotb.com, click on the handicapping link and then the Handicappers Report, you get our nice printable one sheet that's available most racing days. If you didn't write down the picks, my Aqueduct and Keeneland picks are there, but also I have picks for Oaklawn and the Brian Edo Keeneland Matrix is on the page as well. So keep that in mind if you'd like to print that up and refer to it during the afternoon, maybe give you some ideas. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up for this edition of the Handicappers Report. Again, top of the hour, racing across America. We'll be joined by Ellis Starr. We'll talk a little Woodbine, a little Keeneland with Ellis. A little bit after that, Nancy Holthus. We'll talk some Oak Lawn and nice stakes action down there with Nancy. And hopefully give out some more interesting ideas. So stay tuned for all of that at the top of the hour. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up for the Handicappers Report. I'm Seth Merrow. Thanks for tuning in. And as I invite you to do, stay tuned. Top of the hour, we'll be back shortly with Racing Across America.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.